Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking a seriously wild journey into the human body to figure out exactly how we perceive and interact with the world around us. From the tiniest cellular sparks all the way up to the grand command center of the brain, we're going to see how our complex biology seamlessly brings all our experiences to life. Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever wondered how your body just knows to pull your hand away from a hot stove? I mean, it happens in a fraction of a second. Before you even consciously process the pain, your arm has literally already yanked itself back to safety. This everyday miracle is actually a highly orchestrated biological event, and it's the perfect way to ground the complex biology we're about to explore together. So every movement, every single reaction begins with what biologists call a stimulus. A stimulus is, well, just any change in the environment that an organism responds to. Whether you're touching a dangerously hot plate, stepping out into some bright sunshine, or just tasting a bit of sweet sugar on your tongue, it all counts as a stimulus. And it kicks off a carefully controlled, lightning-fast reaction inside you. Section 1. Reacting to the environment. And this brilliantly illustrates how we actually get from a stimulus to a coordinated response. You see, our bodies require specialized tissues and systems to divide up the work. The human nervous system splits the immense labor of receiving info and acting on it into three main branches. You've got the central nervous system, that's the brain and spinal cord, then the peripheral nervous system, connecting up the rest of the body, and finally, the autonomic nervous system, which handles things entirely automatically. It is a vast, beautifully designed communication network, keeping us alive and responsive.
Section 2. Neurons, the information highway.
Now, if we zoom all the way down from that massive macro network to the microscopic cellular level, the actual journey of a physical sensation always begins at a receptor. Receptors are specialized little tips of nerve cells that detect information from the environment. So if you eat something sweet, gustatory receptors in your tongue pick up that taste. If you smell smoke, olfactory receptors in your nose are triggered. This is the very first biological domino to fall. Right, so once that receptor is triggered, the message gets passed to a neuron. A neuron features these branch-like dendrites, a central cell body, and a long tail called an axon. Try to picture the electrical wiring in your house. A circuit is made up of numerous wires connected so that when you flip a switch, boom, a light bulb turns on. In a very similar way, a neuron that gets excited by a stimulus is going to transmit its energy as an electrical signal right to the other neurons in its neighborhood. Let's follow the exact sequence of this electrical impulse. First up, the dendrite acquires the information. Next, this signal sparks an impulse that speeds right through the cell body and races down that long axon. And finally, it arrives at a really critical junction point, the synapse. This brings us to the synapse, which is a tiny gap between neurons. Now, the electrical signal can't just jump across this gap on its own. No way. Instead, it triggers the release of chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. These chemicals basically float across the gap and fit, kind of like a lock and key, into special receptors on the receiving cell. It's this absolutely incredible conversion of electricity into chemistry, making sure the message safely continues its journey from one cell to the next. Section 3. Reflexes, acting without thinking. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these neurons work together to protect us in dangerous situations. We don't always have time to think, right? So our bodies use a biological shortcut called a reflex arc. This is exactly how we pull our hand away from that hot stove we talked about earlier. The sensory signal travels to the spinal cord, and instead of waiting for a complex message to travel all the way up to the brain to be deliberated on, the spinal cord instantly bounces a motor signal right back to the muscle to pull away. It completely bypasses the thinking process just for the sake of speed. This perfectly highlights just how unbelievably efficient our nervous system is. On one hand, we have voluntary actions, things under your conscious control, like writing an email or deciding to speak, which takes some time to process. But on the other hand, we have involuntary actions, like your heartbeat or that immediate automatic reflex ripping your hand away from danger. We absolutely need both of these systems functioning perfectly to survive. Section 4. The brain, our command center. But you know, for most sensory information, the ultimate destination isn't just a quick loop in the spinal cord. It travels all the way up into our skull, right to our 3-pound command center. At the very top, making up the bulk of it, is the cerebrum, which handles our highest cognitive functions. Tucked neatly underneath is the cerebellum, coordinating our muscle movements and balance. And connecting the whole shebang to the spinal cord is the brainstem, acting as a relay center for automatic survival functions like breathing, heart rate, and digestion. If we look specifically at the cerebrum, it systematically divides the incredible workload of human intelligence into 4 distinct lobes. You have the frontal lobe, handling your personality and judgment, the parietal lobe, interpreting touch and pain. The occipital lobe, sitting in the back, is strictly dedicated to vision, and finally, the temporal lobe manages memory and hearing. It is just a phenomenally organized division of labor. Looking deeper into the brain tissue itself, we see 2 main types of matter. Gray matter forms the outer cortex, and it contains the neuronal cell bodies that actually process the data. Beneath that is the white matter, made up of those long nerve fibers or axons that connect different brain areas. Going back to our earlier analogy, think of the gray matter as the computer processors crunching the data, and the white matter as the bundles of high-speed cables connecting them all together so the different lobes can seamlessly communicate.
Section 5. Hormones and the endocrine system. Let's move to and see how this builds on what we've covered, shifting from the fast electrical impulses of the nervous system to the slower chemical regulation of the endocrine system. The vital bridge between these two systems lies in a tiny little region directly above the brainstem called the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is essentially responsible for controlling the 2 H's, homeostasis, which is all about keeping balance and stability in your body, and hormones. It literally bridges the gap by translating those fast nerve signals from the brain into chemical signals for the rest of the body. And the hypothalamus exerts this control primarily by commanding the pituitary gland. Often called the master gland, it sits right below the hypothalamus and secretes crucial hormones that have widespread, dramatic effects. It regulates growth hormone for development, oxytocin, which plays a massive role in childbirth and social bonding, and vasopressin to keep your blood pressure in check. It's so powerful that it even regulates the activity of other hormone-secreting glands throughout your entire body. So the crucial point is that our survival ultimately relies on these 2 distinct systems acting as partners. The nervous system gives us rapid electrical impulses for fast, immediate responses, like dodging a baseball flying at your head. Meanwhile, the endocrine system uses chemical messengers for long-term regulation, like managing your metabolism over years or going through puberty. Together, they work in absolute perfect harmony to control and coordinate every aspect of our lives. To wrap up this explainer, I want you to consider one final thought. How many millions of electrical impulses across vast neuronal highways and how many precise chemical signals from your endocrine system had to perfectly align in your body just to allow you to watch, hear, and comprehend what I'm saying right now? It's absolutely staggering when you truly think about it. Your body is a literal masterpiece of biology, and I hope this exploration leaves you in total awe of your own complexity and always hungry to keep learning.